Today, I am going to tell you a story about a mysterious encounter. In the first part of the video, you'll hear the whole story. Then, in the second part, I'll provide explanation for 10 interesting words and phrases from the story, and review how they have actually been used in the writing. Hope you find it useful, and maybe learn something new from this video. Okay, now let's begin. Part 1, A Mysterious Encounter, The Stranger at the Train Station. It was a cold, misty evening when Sarah found herself waiting for the last train at a nearly deserted station. The dim lights flickered overhead, casting long shadows that danced eerily across the platform. She pulled her coat tighter, trying to ward off the biting chill, her eyes constantly checking the empty tracks. The train was late, and the uneasiness of being alone in such an eerie place began to settle in. Suddenly, from the corner of her eye, Sarah noticed movement at the far end of the platform. A man had appeared seemingly out of nowhere, walking slowly toward her. He was tall, wearing a long, dark overcoat and a hat that cast a shadow over his face. Something about his presence felt out of place. It wasn't just that she hadn't noticed him before. It was the air of mystery that surrounded him. As he got closer, the man gave her a slight nod, acknowledging her but saying nothing. Sarah, feeling a little wary but also curious, returned the nod. She couldn't help but feel a strange pull toward him. Who was he? What was he doing at this remote station so late at night? Minutes passed in silence and the tension grew. The man stood at a distance watching the tracks, as though waiting for something. Sarah glanced over at him again, and this time he met her gaze. "Cold night," he said softly, his voice deep and calm. "Yes," Sarah replied, forcing a smile, though the chill running down her spine had nothing to do with the weather. "The train seems to be taking forever." The man nodded but didn't say anything else. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out an old folded piece of paper. He hesitated for a moment, then extended it toward her. "Would you mind holding on to this for me?" Sarah blinked, surprised by the request. "What is it?" "A letter," he said cryptically, his eyes unreadable under the brim of his hat. "For someone who may come." The strangeness of the situation made her want to refuse, but something in the man's voice compelled her to take it. She unfolded the paper and saw that it was an old-fashioned letter written in neat handwriting. The date was from nearly 20 years ago. "What am I supposed to do with this?" she asked, confused. The man gave her a small, almost sad smile. "You'll know when the time comes." And with that, he turned and began to walk away, disappearing into the fog that had crept over the platform. Sarah stood frozen, staring at the spot where he had vanished. The letter felt oddly heavy in her hands, as though it carried some weight beyond its simple appearance. She wanted to call after the man, ask more questions, but the fog had swallowed him up and she was alone again. Just then, the sound of the approaching train broke through her thoughts. The bright headlights pierced the fog, and within seconds, the train came to a stop in front of her. Still dazed, she stepped inside and found a seat, her mind racing with questions. Who was that man? Why had he given her the letter? And what did he mean by saying she'd know when the time came? 1 year later, Sarah had almost forgotten about the strange encounter at the train station. The letter had been tucked away in a drawer, unopened. Her life had carried on as usual, until the day she found herself back at that same station, on the same platform, once again waiting for the last train. It was another cold night, and as she glanced around, memories of the mysterious man surfaced. Almost instinctively, She reached into her bag and pulled out the old letter, still sealed. She hesitated, then decided to open it. Inside the message was brief. If you're reading this, it means you've met me. Don't be afraid when she arrives. She'll need your help, just as you once needed mine. Before Sarah could make sense of the cryptic words, she heard soft footsteps approaching from behind. She turned and saw a young woman, pale and shivering, walking toward her. The woman looked lost, her face full of confusion and fear. Without thinking, Sarah stepped forward. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. The woman hesitated, then shook her head. I don't know where I am. I don't know how I got here." Sarah felt a chill run through her. The woman's voice, her demeanor, it was too familiar. And suddenly it all clicked. The mysterious man at the station hadn't been a stranger after all. He had been her, or at least a version of her from the future, who had come back to guide her through that lonely night a year ago. Now it was Sarah's turn to do the same for this young woman, caught in the same strange loop of time that had once ensnared her. The man's words in the letter echoed in her mind. "She'll need your help just as you once needed mine." Sarah smiled warmly at the woman. "Don't worry," she said softly, offering her hand. "I know exactly what you're going through." As they waited together for the train, Sarah realized the truth. She had been part of a cycle, a loop of mysterious encounters that spanned across time. The man who had helped her was a future version of herself, and now it was her turn to help the next lost soul, just as someone would help her again one day. The mystery wasn't about the letter or the man. It was about time itself, a strange and unexplainable loop repeating endlessly at that quiet, fog-shrouded station. Part 2. Now let's look at 10 interesting words and phrases and how they are used in the story. Deserted. Abandoned, empty, or uninhabited. Example. The station was nearly deserted, with only a few people left waiting. Eerily. In a strange and frightening manner. Example. The lights flickered eerily, making the station feel even more mysterious. Uneasiness. A feeling of discomfort or anxiety. Example. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of uneasiness as she waited for the late train. Cryptic. Mysterious or obscure in meaning. Example. The man gave her a cryptic message before disappearing into the fog. Compelled. Forced or driven to do something. Example. Despite her hesitation, she felt compelled to take the letter from the stranger. Vanished. Disappeared suddenly or completely. Example. The man vanished into the mist without another word. Shrouded. Covered or concealed, often in mystery or fog. Example. The platform was shrouded in thick fog, making it difficult to see anything clearly. Instinctively, done naturally, without conscious thought. Example. She instinctively reached for the letter as the stranger handed it to her. Loop. A cycle or repeating process. Example. Sarah realized she was part of a strange loop of encounters that spanned time. Resonate. To evoke a feeling of shared emotion or meaning. Example. The man's words seemed to resonate with her deeply, even though she didn't fully understand them. Great work today, well done. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much.